My name's Katrina Mohr. I've been fighting fires since 2012. I'm 30 years old, and I originally started in Northern California with the BLM, and I was on a 20-person hand crew. And then I went to southern Utah, where I was on a Type 4 engine, and then to Buffalo Creek in southern Colorado, where I was on a Type 6 engine, and now I'm in Grand Lake, Colorado, on a Type 6 engine.
Can you tell me a little bit about your firefighter training?
Training, when we're on the job, we do PT every morning if we're not on a fire. And that's usually an hour of running. We do calisthenics, weightlifting. Then we do hikes sometimes in all of our gear with chainsaws and other heavy items that we usually carry on the fire line. And those are just like as fast as you can up the mountain kind of deals. And that's like the hardest days of training for sure.
And what excites you most about fighting wildland fires?
I love being on a fire and you get to be places that people haven't been forever. It's pretty much always off trail, and then you're just in the woods and you stumble across animal bones or like sheds. We find arrowheads and just kind of like old ranching settlements. And then always, even if it's the worst day, the worst fire day you've ever had, when we have lunch, we're on a break and you're just up on the top of a ridge top or some kind of like mountain vista and just looking out and like sitting there for your half hour. It's just, it makes you feel lucky that you get to be in those places that people don't get the chance to always be in.
What's the most important skill that all wildland firefighters should possess?
Say adaptability. You can have a really boring day where it's slow fire, and then all of a sudden on a different area of the fire behavior will pick up and you need to go hike 5 miles and go dig line and really do tough physical work for another 6 hours. Or you can have that happen and think that your day is going to be like that, and then all of a sudden you're taken to another part of the fire, you're driving another 12 hours to get to another fire, and you're just sitting in the car all day. Like, it just changes really quickly, so just have to be patient and just be able to kind of take things as they come.
Can you describe a typical day when you're out fighting fires?
A typical day on the fire line, if you're off district, you're at a fire camp. So it's a little mini village they've set up to provide food and all of our needs, like extra fuel or extra parts and extra tools for anything we need. So you'll get up, usually about 6, like it's always really early mornings. And then you go and have breakfast at the mess tent with all the other firefighters. And then you get your assignment. There's a briefing. And once we get our assignments, then we head out in our vehicles and go to our section of the fire, and then we're pretty much out all day. That's usually we're on the fire line about 8. I'd say that's pretty typical. And then you hike into your part of the fire, or you have to go scout a lot of areas, and then you're either digging line, which is removing all of the flammable parts down to the mineral soil to provide kind of like a little, if you imagine a trail, so it's a fire line break in between the fire and then what it would try and consume next. And if we're not doing that, then we're prepping line in other areas or like for burnouts, and that's when you set fire down on the ground to burn into what's already burning to minimize, so you can kind of control where it goes. And then if we're not doing that, then we're just kind of waiting for fire behavior. If the fire behavior is too intense, a lot of times we don't go too far away from our vehicles or from what's a safe area. And you're just kind of watching and just seeing what the fire will do next. If there's bad weather, a lot of times we'll be called back in. So things can change really quickly on the fire line. But we usually get a break for lunch around 1, and then we're still out on the fire line until dark, which in the summer can be like 7, 8, sometimes 9 o'clock, and then we usually get back into fire camp again at 9 and go have dinner and then go to sleep and start all over again.
Can you tell me a story of one of the hardest days you've had?
When my first season, when I was in California, was like one of the busiest fire seasons they've had in California. So this day was very hard. We were out on an assignment for 14 days. And that's the most you can work consecutively on a fire. And then you usually have 2 days of travel before and after. So we had done that. We had done a full tour, and then we had 2 days off. And then it was a Friday, so we had just like had all this fire, like we were all so tired and like only had 2 days off, And we had a full day where we were using chainsaws and cutting down trees just like for 10 hours during the day. And we usually get off at 4:30, and they had a fire call at 4:25. I remember that was an hour away. It was a new fire start that we had to go to, caused by lightning. So we drove up there, and we ended up being sent out on the line at about like 6 o'clock, 6:30, and we were on the line until 3 in the morning.
So what challenges, physical or other, have you faced as a woman in a male-dominated career?
The challenges I've faced being a woman in male-dominated fire, I guess to let you know, there's about 10% is how it kind of breaks down of women in wildland fire, like across like all positions. So being part of that 10%, the hardest time I had was when I got to fill in on the hotshot crew this past season, just because things are more intense with them, and they already knew each other really well, so that was even harder, just being kind of an outsider jumping into a crew that know themselves well. But they're like 6'5", and they carry, our line gear weighs about 25 pounds, and then your extra stuff that you're carrying around can be up to like 70 pounds total. So for me, that's like a good 75% of my body weight. And for some of the other guys, that's not as much. That's like, I don't even know, 30%, some of these guys. So it was really hard to feel expected to carry that same amount of weight when it was so much harder and like physically tasking for me. But they gave me a lot of credit for just even trying. Even if I couldn't carry it as long, I still could carry it. I could still bear that burden for part of the way, like hiking up the mountain, carrying 5 gallons of gas on my back, the same as right there with the other guys.
Would you recommend this career for other people?
Would absolutely recommend this career if you are someone who loves being outside and can deal with being really dirty at times. We don't get to shower much on the fire line, so sometimes it'll be a good 2 weeks before you get to take a shower. And if you just like seeing new places, we travel a lot in the U.S. Some people even get flown to Canada. One of my crews got flown to Hawaii to deal with a volcano. And Alaska is common to go to. You just never know where you might be needed. So if you enjoy sleeping in the dirt, hiking a lot, and just pushing yourself, I never knew what I was made of until I started fire.